Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly.
Workers at a Georgia Hyundai plant describe a chaotic scene after an immigration raid at the facility. Federal authorities say Thursday's raid was the result of a months-long investigation by several agencies.
Foreign car makers like Hyundai and BMW to be opposed to imports.
Hyundai, the South Korean automaker that once stood as a symbol of successful foreign investment in the U.S., now finds itself at a critical juncture. What was once hailed as a triumph of global manufacturing in American soil is beginning to unravel, and the reasons go far beyond simple financial challenges. In fact, the company is battling a combination of external pressures that are threatening not only its immediate survival, but also the stability of communities and industries that grew around it. One of the most shocking moments for Hyundai in recent times came in Georgia, where federal authorities carried out the largest immigration raid ever seen at a U.S. workplace. The raid, which detained 475 workers at the Hyundai battery plant, was the culmination of a months-long investigation by several agencies. This raid wasn't a minor inconvenience, it was a massive disruption, both in terms of its immediate impact on the workforce and its broader implications for the company's ability to maintain its operations in the U.S. The raid disrupted more than just the daily rhythms of the plant. It threw the entire expansion of Hyundai's battery production into disarray. Construction on new facilities came to a screeching halt, schedules collapsed, and supply chains were thrown into turmoil. It wasn't just the workers who were directly impacted. The effects rippled outward, affecting contractors, local suppliers, and, ultimately, the consumers who were relying on Hyundai's products. What was supposed to be a leap forward in clean energy production now became a stark reminder of the fragility of foreign investments in the U.S., especially when tangled in the complexities of immigration law. The story didn't end with the immigration raid. Just as Hyundai was trying to recover, it found itself caught in the crossfire of a broader trade war initiated by the Trump administration. In particular, the imposition of a 25% tariff on imported auto parts was a devastating blow to Hyundai's bottom line. This tariff, which aimed to protect American manufacturing by penalizing imported goods, did nothing to shield Hyundai's production or make its cars more affordable. In fact, it had the opposite effect. Prices of Hyundai vehicles, especially higher-end models, surged by thousands of dollars, pushing them out of reach for many middle-class American buyers. This in turn left dealerships with unsold inventory and forced Hyundai to rethink its entire approach to the U.S. market. The tariffs were especially damaging because they came at a time when Hyundai was already struggling with labor shortages and the fallout from the immigration crackdown. These two forces combined to create an almost insurmountable challenge for Hyundai, one that left its financial situation in tatters. Sales figures began to plummet as the cost of vehicles rose, and consumers started to shy away from purchasing cars that were once seen as affordable options. But the financial crisis wasn't the only problem. The ripple effect of Hyundai's struggles was felt throughout the surrounding communities in Alabama and Georgia. Local businesses that had flourished thanks to Hyundai's presence began to suffer. Restaurants, suppliers, and small shops that relied on the factory workers' presence and spending power saw their revenues dip, and in some cases, they closed their doors for good. The promise of industrial stability that had once seemed so certain now felt like a distant memory, replaced by uncertainty and fear of what the future might hold. As the situation worsened, Hyundai found itself questioning its long-term future in the U.S. The idea of retreating from the American market, something that seemed unthinkable just a few years ago, began to take root in the company's boardrooms. The combination of immigration crackdowns, rising tariffs, and labor shortages made it clear that the U.S. had become a far riskier place to do business than anyone could have anticipated. In the face of these challenges, Hyundai began to consider alternative supply chains outside the U.S. Vietnam, India, and other emerging markets began to look more attractive to the automaker, not just for their cheaper labor costs but also for their more predictable regulatory environments. The growing sense of instability in the U.S. was starting to push Hyundai and other foreign companies toward more reliable options abroad. This crisis was not just Hyundai's alone. It served as a warning for the entire global manufacturing sector. If a major company like Hyundai could struggle so severely in the U.S., what hope was there for smaller, less established companies? The difficulties faced by Hyundai, combined with the rising costs, labor shortages, and immigration enforcement, highlighted a much larger issue. The U.S. is increasingly becoming an unpredictable and risky place for foreign investment. Hyundai's troubles also raise important questions about the future of U.S. manufacturing. If foreign companies like Hyundai, which once viewed the U.S. as a safe and profitable market, are now considering leaving, what does that mean for the future of industrial growth in America? As other companies begin to assess the risks of operating in the U.S., there's a very real possibility that this trend could spread. The once thriving industrial regions of the American South, which had built their economies around foreign investments like Hyundai's, are now left to wonder what their future holds. The collapse of Hyundai's American operation is not just about a single company's difficulties. It's about a larger trend that could have sweeping implications for the future of global manufacturing in the U.S. The immigration policies, tariffs, and labor shortages that have contributed to Hyundai's struggles are starting to have a systemic effect on the broader economy, with consequences for consumers, workers, and local communities. The situation at Hyundai's plants in the American South is more than just a corporate crisis. It's a story that reflects the broader struggles faced by the entire U.S. manufacturing industry. The ripple effects of Hyundai's troubles are being felt not just in Alabama and Georgia, but across the country, as more and more companies begin to question whether the U.S. is still a viable place for large-scale production. The first major consequence is the severe impact on local communities. For years, cities in the South have relied on foreign companies like Hyundai to bring jobs and economic stability. These factories were seen as pillars of prosperity, offering a steady stream of jobs to local workers, from assembly line employees to suppliers and contractors. But now, with Hyundai's future in doubt, these communities are facing a crisis of their own. Small businesses that once thrived on the business brought in by Hyundai workers are closing down, and local economies are beginning to show signs of strain. Restaurants, gas stations, and convenience stores that were once bustling with factory workers are now seeing a decline in customers. Suppliers that provided parts to Hyundai and other automakers are struggling to find new contracts, and even the most reliable service providers are feeling the pinch as the flow of business slows to a crawl. These small businesses were the backbone of local economies in places like Montgomery and Tuscaloosa, but now they're facing uncertainty. And as the ripple effects of Hyundai's troubles continue to spread, it's clear that these communities are in danger of losing the stability they had come to rely on. But the consequences of Hyundai's struggles go beyond the local economy. The larger U.S. auto industry is also beginning to feel the strain. The tariffs imposed on imported auto parts have caused a systemic disruption that's affecting more than just Hyundai. Other foreign automakers, such as BMW, Toyota, and Volkswagen, are also grappling with the same set of challenges. Rising costs, labor shortages, and tariffs are pushing many of these companies to rethink their investments in the U.S., with some considering relocating their operations to other countries that offer cheaper labor and more predictable regulatory environments. In addition to the direct financial impact on automakers, the rising costs of production are also having a severe impact on consumers. As Hyundai's prices rise due to tariffs and labor shortages, many buyers who once saw the brand as an affordable alternative to American-made cars are now being priced out of the market. For many middle-class families, the dream of owning a new car is quickly becoming out of reach, and with fewer affordable vehicles on the market, consumers are being forced to turn to other, potentially more expensive options, further squeezing their budgets. At the same time, the broader economy is starting to feel the effects of the disruptions in the auto industry. The U.S. auto sector, once a cornerstone of the country's industrial strength, is now facing an existential crisis. The collapse of one of the most successful foreign automakers in the U.S. is a stark reminder of how fragile the manufacturing sector has become. The combination of high tariffs, immigration crackdowns, and labor shortages has created an environment where companies can no longer thrive as they once did. This has far-reaching implications for the economy as a whole, as the auto industry is one of the largest employers in the country. But the real danger lies in what comes next. If companies like Hyundai, which have invested billions in the U.S. and helped revitalize entire regions, can no longer survive in this environment, what does that mean for the future of American manufacturing? As foreign companies begin to look for more stable alternatives, it's clear that the U.S. risks losing its place as the world's manufacturing powerhouse. The question is no longer whether this will happen, but when it will happen. With every passing day, the prospect of a mass exodus of foreign investment becomes more likely. Hyundai's struggles are not an isolated case, but rather a sign of things to come. As the U.S. becomes a more unpredictable place to do business, foreign companies are looking to other markets that offer more stability, cheaper labor, and more predictable regulations. In countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico, companies can operate with fewer risks and less interference from government policies. And as these countries continue to develop their manufacturing capabilities, the U.S. risks losing its competitive edge. This shift in global manufacturing is already happening. While the U.S. struggles to maintain its industrial base, competitors like China and Europe are capitalizing on the opportunity to increase their manufacturing presence in emerging markets. China, in particular, has made significant investments in countries like Vietnam and Indonesia, where labor is cheaper and regulations are more favorable. Meanwhile, European manufacturers are also looking to expand in markets that are less affected by U.S. tariffs and immigration policies. As these countries continue to grow their manufacturing sectors, the U.S. is being left behind. Hyundai's struggles are also a warning for other industries beyond the auto sector. If a company of Hyundai's size and influence can falter under the weight of tariffs and labor shortages, other industries could soon follow suit. From electronics to consumer goods, industries that rely on global supply chains are facing the same set of challenges. The result is a potential loss of jobs, investment, and innovation in the U.S. as companies look to move their operations overseas. As Hyundai quietly considers its options, the broader question remains, what does this mean for the future of U.S. manufacturing? Will the U.S. be able to retain its place as a global industrial leader, or will foreign companies, driven by better conditions abroad, continue to leave? The answer to that question will have a profound impact on the future of the American economy and the livelihoods of millions of workers. In conclusion, Hyundai's experience is more than just the story of one company's struggles. It's a cautionary tale for the entire U.S. manufacturing sector, one that highlights the fragility of American industry in the face of rising tariffs, unpredictable policies, and labor shortages. The consequences of these challenges are being felt from the factory floor to the streets of small-town America, and the effects are likely to continue spreading unless significant changes are made. As the U.S. grapples with these issues, one thing is clear: the country must act quickly to address the risks facing its manufacturing base before it's too late.